Hey there, everyone, and welcome to a really special episode of kind of a combination of a Plays Well with Others interview and also a kind of an episode of Meeples For Sheepish Peoples, because I'm here with Mandi Hutchinson, who you may know from Board Game Breakfast and co-hosting the Dice Tower podcast and just more and more things. It seems everywhere I go at a convention, there you are.
I know, and you can't miss me.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got to talking in the Dice Tower booth at Origins, and I was just shocked that we were talking about doing some potential things, and you started to kind of get some cold feet and anxiety about going in and working, like doing these interviews and these presentations, because you were talking about, well, I'm feeling kind of introverted about this.
Right.
And you were the last person in the world with all of the podcasting and YouTubing and, the hair and the flamboyant outfits and stuff. Last person I would expect to really have any sort of anxiety in any sort of social setting.
Yeah.
So the more that we talked, the more I found parallels to what I've experienced and you experienced. So I thought that this would be a really interesting discussion to have about this.
Absolutely.
So first off, let's set the stage.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your real world background, and then kind of how you've come to get into the board gaming world.
Okay. So when I was a child, I was very quiet.
Okay.
I was definitely an introvert. I did not like to do any type of public speaking at all. And I was a pretty good student, but I would rather take a 0 than get up in front of a class.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was crying. I would cry. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I would, not want to go to class. I would refuse to do it.
Wow.
That being said, I forced myself to do more public speaking and to engage with bigger groups. I had to get over that feeling stupid or feeling like, oh my goodness, everyone's judging me, because now this is when the anxiety starts creeping in, right? And you don't know when you're a kid what that is, but it starts to develop as an adult because you have more and more responsibilities. So this actually stems back to childhood. So with family time for us was a really big thing. So for us, eating together as a family, that was important.
Okay.
So, I'm going to a friend's house. Yet, no, that didn't happen.
Okay.
So you had game time with your family.
Okay.
So we actually had set things to do together as a family. So my family was very strict growing up. So I wasn't allowed to do a lot of sleepovers. I wasn't allowed to do a lot of things that other kids were allowed to do because I just had a very strict upbringing. And education was really important, hence the reason I'm a teacher now. So school was really a big deal. So, so gaming was always part of who I am because it was something we did together as a family.
Okay.
Yeah, and then from there, I kind of got away from it. I did it with friends, and I got away doing other kind of hobbies, and then I said, hey, I miss this. And then I came back, especially when I started teaching, because I realized it was a tool that I could use in the classroom, and that's what kind of brought me back in. And then now I'm with the federal government, and we do gaming there too, so I'm kind of putting it in all aspects of my life.
What made you decide to make that leap then to transition into creating board game media?
I just was online and looking at things, and I'm like, oh, this is great. A lot of people who are very knowledgeable about the subject, but I didn't see anyone that looked like me. And when I say that, because people jump to the obvious, and I'm like, well, I didn't see anybody with really cool hair color, or do you know what I mean? Or had a kind of different fun take. I'm a bit random. So, I love the stuff that, you were doing because it was different. And I'm not saying that wasn't out there, but I just wasn't seeing that really out there and different that you can get that kind of group to relate to. So I was like, oh, let's try that now. Not everybody has to have blue hair to relate to what I'm doing, but they can say, hey, that's cool. She's different. She can do that. I can do that too, or I can join in the discussion. That's all.
Through that media work, gotten more and more involved with the Dice Tower and have been doing more and more public, presentations and such. When it comes to dealing with the crowds and the conventions and things like that, what are some of the things that you find yourself struggling or dealing with or even enjoying in these type of situations?
For example, you brought up how, you were working at the booth with the organization. I love that. I know it seems like a really odd thing, but as someone who has ADHD and anxiety, I really rely on having a schedule for really busy events like that. Okay. So when things are kind of like, oh, let's just toss this in here, or let's do this here, I'm like, it literally makes my eye twitch because now I have to reset. I'm like, okay, let's organize myself. Okay, so I had planned to do this. I'm in the schedule here, but now we're changing it here. Any of these last minute things, it's fine, I can adjust, but it takes me that bit of time because now I went from being okay to, oh my goodness, what do I do? It's very stressful. You could ask Suzanne, she knows, because I'll talk to her, but I just can't stop talking about it. It's like until it gets sorted or organized or I can research it properly. And it's figured out. I'm obsessing about it because I don't want to look silly or I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? I like that feeling of having control. It's the lack of control.
That's one of the things I was actually going to ask you about. Well, I realized after a while that it's not, for me, the social anxiety part of things is not public speaking or being in front of a crowd. But if I'm in control of the situation, no sweat.
Right.
As the great example, and tell me how this compares to you.
Yes, please.
The great example is like sometimes, during like a Dice Tower podcast live recording, Tom will have me come up and do like a segment. And if I scripted it and prepared, I'll get up, boom, 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 do my segment. And then he's like, come sit down. And then you sit down, he gives you a mic, tell us about what you've enjoyed playing. It's like, yeah. And it's just like all of a sudden this wall. Boom.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the same with the podcast. I don't think people realize how much work sometimes we actually put into these podcasts. It's not like, okay, I'm going to talk about these 3 games and talk about them on the fly. Like for Tom, I'll be honest with you, I think for him, that's a very easy thing to do. That's a skill because for me, I'm like, no, I'll ramble or I'll miss things or it's just jointed. I'm not in control of what I want to say. So for me, it's better if I lay out my ideas and have something to follow so I can get through my points and it's intelligible. Like it's not, I don't sound silly or like I don't know what I'm speaking about. When I actually do, it's just I need to form those ideas in advance to have a better idea of what I want to talk about.
I totally understand. You're having a conversation, and if you feel like you're starting to ramble, your mind is like, "Hey, you're being an incoherent moron," and then it just feeds on itself.
Oh, that is. You've described it so well, and it's happened in podcasts before. And I listen back, I'm like, oh my goodness, like what was I'm like rambling on, and it's just going off on tangents. I'm talking, it doesn't make sense to me, and I'll be honest with you, I've had people say, oh, like it was fine. But to me, I'm like, no, it's not fine. I know exactly what I should have been talking about.
Yes.
And that wasn't it at all.
Yeah, you see all the mistakes that other people don't see.
Right.
Yeah, and that just multiplies that anxiety for future conversations.
Exactly.
I find being in a crowd much easier to deal with.
Yes.
But as soon as you get on like a one-on-one situation, someone comes up and starts talking to you, hey, you're like, hey, thank you for coming up and saying hi. But in your mind, you're just like, I am just shaking inside because I don't know how to continue this conversation. And am I going to have an awkward moment where like I just kill the conversation and we're just standing here like idiots?
Yes. I get random. So you'll know. Anybody who's talked to me, I'll just throw out a random thing and I'm like, yeah, that was not the right way to go. And I just hope they go with it and it just kind of lends to my quirky personality. Meanwhile, it's like super awkward. Yeah, that'd be me.
So how does that affect the way that you approach these type of situations? Do you have to do anything? Do you have to do anything special in your own way that you prepare and do them?
So it sounds silly, but getting rest for me is really important. I find if I'm really tired, I feel like I'm less equipped. My brain is not functioning to its fullest capacity, and I find that I'm less patient, or I'm more in that introverted state. It sounds really strange, but even as someone with ADHD, they even tell you exercise is really important. Getting really good rest is really important. You function better. You're less likely to interrupt people or, get very withdrawn and quiet, which does happen sometimes if I'm uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I can be a little standoffish. And it's not, I used to be told that I was a bit of a snob when I was younger.
Oh, no, that's the same thing. Kind of being a wallflower in social situations.
Right.
People are like, oh, you think you're too good for us or something. And,
exactly. Yeah. And I've talked to Suzanne about this too. Like when we've done live shows and things like that, I feel like, Eric is vibing with Tom and Suzanne, and I'm like, it's awkward because I'm like, do I jump in? Okay, am I interrupting? Like all of these things are now running through my head, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna stay quiet, for right now.
Yeah, I can see that. You're kind of like, I'll just speak when spoken to.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that's not necessarily the best approach, but sometimes it's the only thing I can think of at that time. So I almost have to mentally prepare myself in advance for certain things. Like if we're going to a convention and there's like a schedule, mm-hmm. I like to go through the schedule and I actually will put it in my phone. So I know when I'm supposed to be in certain places or I'm responsible for certain things, and then go over it with the person. Like for example, for you, okay, so what's going on for today, just to get a run through. Sometimes it's hard in a social situation. You don't have that and there's a lot of surprises. So it's always nice to go with someone else, and that you're heavily relying on them, but I don't know how to explain this.
Wait. No, this is something that we haven't really even talked about in our notes or anything in our previous discussions. But so are you saying that like in like a convention setting,
right,
you find yourself not necessarily being a tag along, but allowing someone else or a group of people to kind of make the plans, and then you kind of like, I'm going with the flow, I'm just going to go with you.
Yep.
And that way I do that exact same thing.
And if you ever see me at a convention, how many times do you see me by myself? Seriously.
I've noticed that, but I just thought because you're always busy.
No, a lot of the time I'd be like, oh, Suze, let's go here. Like, what do we want to do? Or, and she knows. Like, I'll literally, it's awkward.
Yeah, no, I'll get to the point where there's some of my closest friends that I hang around with. I also get to the point where like the second, third day in the convention, I'll start thinking, oh my gosh, I'm bugging these people.
Yes.
I can't wait. Really?
Yes. And I'm like, and I bring up Suzanne because she's the one that I spend the most time with. And I honestly feel like, oh my gosh, she's probably so annoyed with me. Like, literally all these questions, I'm bothering her. She probably just wants to go hang out with other people. I'm always hanging around. Maybe I should go do something else, but I want to go by myself. I'm afraid. Literally, these are the things that go through my head.
Wow. Yeah, because I'll get to the point usually like day 3 of a convention. Right. It's like, I'll make up an excuse like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing just to purposely disengage to give them space.
Because you feel like you're annoying and you're, being overbearing, and it's not. It's just like you just don't want to be awkwardly standing there by yourself.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yes. It's so strange that these things that go through your mind that you think that it's just you, that it is not uncommon. It's so
not at all. And then people look at me and would never think that. And I'm like, never judge it by this. I mean, I just like to change my hair color and I like really cool fashion. And I've always been like that. My mom's like, that was always you. You were always into something different. But I guess the other things that maybe come along with it are things that I've had to develop over time. And I'm a teacher by trade. I'm a teacher, so I teach children. And, I teach children to be vocal when they're speaking, and to form these relationships, but be able to be standing on your own to do these things. And I struggle with it myself. So I'm learning and teaching all at the same time.
Let's touch on that real quick. That's okay. So you in a teaching environment, you're around the kids and the students and everything and that. And in a convention environment, of course, always, especially when you're working the booth and doing things, always around all these people. And so I wanted to compare the experience of how that affects, your quote-unquote energy level, because that's what I've learned about the difference between an introvert and an extrovert.
Right.
An extrovert gains their energy from interaction with other people.
Right.
An introvert gains their energy from alone time to recharge.
Exactly. You brought up a really good point. It's I get irritable. That would be the word. Once I've had enough, and when I say it's not that it. And it's hard because you're not blaming anyone. It's just you've had your fill of people time. You kind of need that alone time. And I notice, like for myself, I start to get irritable, and I feel like my patience is a bit shorter with things. Not that I'm snapping at people, but I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think I really need to just disengage right now. There was a situation where we were at a convention and everyone wanted to play games, and I was like, okay, I'm getting close to that point where I think I've had enough for today. But I said, okay, I didn't want to be the party pooper, so hang out. And then I'm like, no. And midway through the game, I literally was like, hey, I'm going to bed now. It was so abrupt and awkward.
Mid-game?
Right. It was like, I shouldn't say mid-game. It was like we were just kind of getting through the rules and kind of had just started.
Oh, okay. So you're just like, I'm going to bail.
Right. When I say mid-game, it was because we had been talking about it for a while. But yeah, it was closer to we had just started, but we had gone through the rules.
Before you got invested in it.
Right. And I just said, you know what? I better, now would be the time. So I was just like, I can't. I need to go to bed. I'm really tired. I'm not playing anymore. And I'm like, wow, I just realized that was super abrupt, but it was just had been sitting there for so long. I'm like, I needed to go.
Yeah. But you weren't mad at everybody or upset.
Not
it was
at
just,
all.
you feel that, like you said, that irritability of, I know that I'm done. I know I'm just not myself.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think it's, for me, it's better that as soon as that starts to happen, I should, at that point, instead of trying to ride it out, you're trying to be, one of the team, and, you're better off just to go, relax, and then freshen up for the next day.
Yep. That's, and again, it's another one of those things. It's like, if you're just going through it by yourself and you don't realize how common it is, how, other people feel that way, the burden just is on yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. It's always nice to talk to other people too, because sometimes you feel like, wow, I'm the only one like this. It's, you know what I mean? And you're the odd one out, and it's like, well, no, there are a lot of people, and like me, fake it till you make it. Like we didn't know until you and I started talking about organization of the booth, and I'm like, oh, like I love that you're so organized, and we started getting into this conversation. So I think having these conversations with people is great, because then you don't feel like it's just you.
Do you find that, like at a convention or such, that you will go out of your way to find opportunities to go like just back to your hotel room or something and not even turn the lights on and just kind of be quiet for like 10, 15 minutes and then come back? Really?
I've had moments like that where, for example, if it's with, well, I'm drawing on Suzanne because she's the one I legitimately cling to 90% of the time. But I'd literally be like, oh, I'm gonna go back to the room for a little bit. And It literally could just be just doing exactly what you said, nothing. Sometimes even I'm just taking a quick little read, just taking a rest, and then you kind of just do that recharge and get back out there. But yes, I absolutely have taken time to myself midway through a day or something like that, and then head back out.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, same thing. Has the hair color and the bright outfits and stuff. That's always been part of your personality then. And so, do you feel that is a separate thing from kind of the introversion and the anxieties, or something that you actually have gone out of your way to work on?
It's a separate thing. It's me. I always tell people in this business, someone as a media type personality, it's a character. Now, you are the same person, but you are now placing yourself as this is your character that is presented.
Oh.
Does that make sense? And
yes, on camera and stuff. I always feel like it's me, but it's an exaggerated version of me.
Exactly.
It's like you put on these masks to show people, especially in conventions, the version of yourself that you want them to see.
Right. That's 100% it. So I literally tell people, it's like, you're playing a game and you can develop yourself into a character. It's still you. It's just exactly what you just said. It's an exaggerated version of you. So I'm still like this, but honestly, when I'm at home, I'm like a golden girl. I'm just relaxing with my dogs on my deck, listening to the bird sounds. Don't get me wrong, I still do fun things, like I go to vintage shows and hang out with my mom and my friends, and we do fun things like that. Hence, I do videos. But it's a different person when I'm at home, as in the fact that I'm, maybe not dressed up to the nines. I'm in my pajamas or my onesie versus being on here with my hair well done and my dress all done. It's still me, but it's just a slightly exaggerated version of me.
Do you find that is a defense mechanism that actually helps? Because when I come to a convention, I know that there's sometimes that it actually helps me when I'm starting to feel nervous talking to someone. And I think, hey, no, I'm that guy on the videos. Right. So I can kind of lapse into that kind of, okay, I'm that exaggerated, witty caricature of myself.
Right.
And it helps.
Sometimes I use it as a defense mechanism. It's a way for me to still be personable. Mm-hmm. Okay, you're still getting to know me. It's personal, but you're not seeing the also very dry, boring side of me. It's like it just takes over when I'm in front of the camera. Mm-hmm. So I think to some degree, I never really thought about it. I'm like, no, but even when I'm talking to my students about things like that, I tell them, develop a character. If you're uncomfortable speaking in front of a group, especially when I work with executives and things like that, develop a character. So it's still you, and incorporate your skill sets and everything into this character, but make it more. Yeah.
And I think it's a good idea to clarify on that. It's not create an alternate personality.
Right.
It's find something about yourself in a way that allows you to, well, for lack of a better word, put on that mask to perhaps help create that barrier sometimes that we need in some of these situations.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
One thing that a lot of people talk about is they say, this is my first convention. And some of them are like, I'm really freaking out, but I did it. So I wanted to ask you, what's your opinion on the question of should I go to a convention? Like, a lot of people will say, I hate crowds, I freak out, I don't like the crowds, but I want to come to Gen Con at least once. What do you think about that?
I think you have to do what's comfortable for you. For me, coming back to, I was an introvert as a child. I don't want to say forced, but I encouraged myself to work toward being more comfortable with public speaking, which I think for the most part now that I am. In little steps. So maybe start with a smaller con and go from there. And then maybe you'll find your threshold and say, hey, you know what? That's as far as I'm willing to go. For me, it's part of the duties as being on the dice. However, we're never forced. I mean, we have that option of not coming. But for me, it's one of those things, no, I'd like to experience it. What can I learn from it? Maybe what can I do better as a person when I'm dealing with these types of situations? But I've reached that point in my life where I've found mechanisms to kind of work and help me.
It definitely comes with practice. I've been doing conventions now for about 4 years, and I actually have learned little tips, tricks, traditions I have for myself. They all help. Like, talk about the scheduling. This is the way I do this. This is the way I do that. And this is how I get ready. This is how I even travel through the airport. And I have little routines.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think that's huge. Even packing for me. I have my things because I'm, drawing on it. People expect me, to look a certain way, and that's part of who I am. Okay, we're doing this event here, so I need to wear this particular outfit. Okay, we have a dinner afterward. I need to go back to the hotel room at this time to change. I have to schedule it. And for me, that's also to do with my ADHD a little bit, to set myself a schedule so I'm not falling behind.
Huh.
Yeah, and I find that keeps me on track. When things start falling by the wayside, that's when the eye twitch starts happening. And I'm Poor Sue's like, okay, what are we doing? Okay, I'm really stressed out. Oh my goodness, it's a lot of that. So I don't want to fall into that trap all the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, Mandy, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to schedule this time with me.
Oh,
because, I mean, it's not only, I think, been a very intriguing conversation, it's also actually been really useful to me to know, like, wow, there's so much overlap in the things you experience. And like I said, before Origins even, I never even would have thought, that there was so many things I feel that you felt too.
I was so happy when you were working the booth. I'm like, oh, respect the schedule, everyone. Like, that's why anytime someone came to the booth, I could come to you and be like, oh, is it okay if we put this person here? Because I know what it feels like when things are out of control. So I can appreciate it. And it's nice to have someone who understands that. So thank you for asking me to come on and talk with you and everyone else.
Yes. And so I hope that this has been helpful and informative and interesting. And if you have any questions or comments or whatever, feel free to add them to the comments below. And thank you, Mandy. And just real quick, anyone who might not yet know where to find you, where can we find you?
So if you want to email me, so you can Mandy with an I at dicetower.com. I'm also on Instagram, Board Gaming Pinup Girl, and on Twitter, Board Gamer Pinup Girl. Someone stole the name on that one. I know.
All right, so thanks. And yes, for more board game news, reviews, and commentary and discussions like this, be sure to subscribe, keep watching, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Don't look at my early videos, okay? I was learning things.
Everyone is allowed 6 learning videos.
Yeah, it was maybe a little more than 6. But
there's one other thing I wanted to touch on if we have like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh no, it was, and it's gone.
Don't think about it, it'll come back to you. Maybe we talk about something else. Sometimes
Yeah.
that happens for me and then it comes back.
I remember what it was.
Oh, okay.
It's oh no.
I have done that.
Okay, I did get up at 3 a.m. yesterday, and I couldn't get to sleep till 3 a.m. last night.
Yes, so you were allowed to.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.